It's 7 a.m., and Elizabeth is still in bed, dreaming about last night. She remembers Gabe and herself hanging out at a bus stop while eating ice cream. Then two people who were also eating ice cream walked past them. It was a girl and her father laughing while holding hands. Seeing those two made her sad. She starts to reminisce the time she spent with her father.
"What's wrong?"
asked Gabriel. She snaps out of it and lies.
"Nothing. Why do you ask?"
He then points to her ice cream. It was dripping.
"I know you would eat that ice cream whole before it can melt. Are you sure you're okay?"
She lets go of her fake smile.
Was that obvious, huh?
She asked while looking down.
My dad would always take me and Mike out for ice cream when I was little.
Said Elizabeth.
"That's nice. What did he do for a living?"
Asked Gabriel.
He entertained children.
Said Elizabeth. Her father had also claimed the lives of 5 children, including Gabriel's in his past life. And she fears that telling Gabriel the truth will make her lose him forever. There was silence between them. Then Elizabeth broke the silence.
"Gabe?"
Asked Elizabeth as she waits for him to respond.
"Yeah?"
He responded.
"Will you love me no matter what?"
Her phone rang before Gabriel could answer the question. It was a message from her mother.
"Aw, man, it's Mom. She's going to nag me for not being home on time,"
said Elizabeth while her head is filled with dread. Gabriel hopped from the chair that they were sitting on.
"All right, let's go,"
he said with a cheery expression on his face. "Liz, wake up!" shouted a sudden male voice. The dream was interrupted. She lifted and turned her head and saw her eldest brother standing in the doorway. "Come on, Mom made breakfast." He was wearing a coat over his purple vest, tie, and plain white collar shirt.
"Okay, Michael, go away."
Her words were muffled because her face was planted on a pillow. I don't know why I even fixed your voice modulator. Scoffed Michael while putting on his polar bear mask to cover his zombie-like face. He leaves and then heads downstairs. Elizabeth looks at her alarm clock and sees that it's already 8 a.m. She gets up and starts the day with breakfast. Heading downstairs, she sees 3 wooden ballerinas playing with Michael in the kitchen. Each of them have different names. The short one is Teeny, the tall one is Weenie, and the tallest is Meanie. Together, they are the Mini-Rinas. They also wear skirts. Liz is also their big sister. Elizabeth sits at the kitchen table next to what seems to be a robot. It has thick but flexible mangled tubes, shaped like a body. It even has a metal-plated clown face and a party hat to go along with it. Though the two are no strangers to one another given their banter with each other. Elizabeth was disappointed to find eggs, grits, sausages, waffles with syrup, and orange juice in front of her because she wanted to have ice cream in the morning. Even when her mother forbids her. A tune suddenly starts playing. It was Michael's ringtone. "Hello?" he said while holding the phone to his ear. "You gotta be kidding me. I'll be right over. I need to go now," said Michael while facing the Mini-Rinas with a smile.
"Aww,"
said the little ones. "Is everything okay?" asked the mother, who was washing the dishes. Her body is made of metal. It has a white color tone, like Elizabeth's, blue hair with a bun, and a tutu over her waist. "I got a call from work about a murder," Michael whispered. "Oh dear," says the mother. "Ennard, stop stuffing your face and come on," said Michael while walking to the door. "Don't get your dead skin in a twist, eggs," said the clown-faced robot. That was the nickname it gave Michael when they first met. He hated that name, of course, but then he gave up on correcting it. Ennard likes to think it grew on him. It puts all of its exotic butters in the basket and follows him. Elizabeth gets curious.
"Where are you going?"
she asked. Michael responds. "To work." She starts to pry.
"Yeah, obviously, but where though?"
He shuts the door without answering.
Humph! How rude!
Said Elizabeth under her breath while crossing her arms. Ennard then digs his claws into Michael's back, ripping his flesh open so he can step inside. It doesn't bother Michael, because he feels no pain. It became one of the benefits of being a literal zombie. He also doesn't need to eat or sleep. But of course, there is no such thing as a gift without a curse.
Yo, eggs!
Yelled Ennard, trying to get Michael's attention.
What is it?
He responded.
What was all that about back home?
Asked Ennard.
What do you mean?
Michael asked.
Elizabeth asked you a specific question and then you dodge it, swiftly, like you were being stingy with the details.
He said.
Your conscience is linked with mine, so you should already know the answer.
Said Michael while driving.
Is it about her seeing Gabriel? She's not a little girl anymore, Eggs. You can't keep protecting her forever.
Said Ennard. Michael stops on a red light.
And even if he does find out, it's not like he'll...
Michael then shuts down the conversation and says,
We have a job to do, so I suggest you stay focused.
He gently steps on the gas when the light turns green. They finally made it after a few miles later, though the only way to their destination was over a hill. So Michael parked his car downhill with the front wheels turned to the curb.
Are you okay, Eggs?
Asked Ennard with concern. Michael starts having flashbacks of his troubled past.
It's been years, and the cycle still hasn't ended.
Said Michael while dread filled his head. Standing before them is a pizzeria surrounded by squad cars with uniforms and an ambulance with their sirens blaring.
Come on, Eggs. We can stop this from getting out of hand.
Said Ennard with optimism. Michael takes a deep breath and exhales.
Let's go.
Said Michael. He steps inside and sees caution tape everywhere. Michael then squeezes past a crowd of cops to meet up with a flash photographer, kneeling over the victim's body.
Detective Schmidt, I've been waiting for you.
Says the photographer holding his camera. He, you guessed it, is also an animatronic who is based on an animal, such as a rat.
Analyzing this requires Ennard's level of expertise anyways.
Said the rat.
Thanks. We'll take it from here.
Said Michael. While the rat took his leave, Ennard emerges out of Michael's back. He then uses strobe light to scan the victim's body for clues. A paw print on his forehead has been revealed.
Just like the others.
Said Ennard.
Who did this to you, Toy Bonnie? And why?
Asked Michael. The two have been getting nothing but dead ends for months, but they don't let that stop them from bringing the murderer to justice.
I said, let me through!
Shouted a sudden female voice. Michael recognizes that voice. It was his sister's.
What is she doing here?
Michael asked. The police tried to keep Elizabeth from crossing. Instead, she goes through them like a wrecking ball. She then starts to call,
Gabriel! Are you in here?
One of the police pulled out their handcuffs.
Ma'am, I am gonna have
Michael
to place you
intervenes.
Stand down, officer.
He says,
I'm sorry, Detective Schmidt. She's just so strong.
Says the kangaroo-based animatronic.
It's okay. I'll take it from here.
After the officer left, Michael gave Elizabeth the look of disapproval.
What are you doing here? You're supposed to be home looking after the mini-renas.
He says,
Mom has the day off, so she's looking after them. And I stopped by the pizzeria to say good morning. Then I saw police cars and an ambulance surrounding the building. And that really had me worrying.
She said anxiously.
What about Sister Location? Who is running that place while you're gone?
Asked Michael with his arms crossed. Said Elizabeth. She had an embarrassed expression on her face because she realized that she forgot about her responsibilities. Then Michael exploded.
You are the most irresponsible person that our family has to put up with.
Elizabeth bites back by saying,
Of course you would know a thing or two about being irresponsible.
The tension started to rise between them. Ennard sprouted out of Michael's spine, trying to defuse.
Okay, let's just take a deep breath.
Then someone from behind tapped Elizabeth's shoulder. It was Gabriel. Hey guys, says Gabriel while smiling. Elizabeth's face lit up with joy because of his presence, so she picks him up and gives him a hug.
I am so glad you're okay.
She said with relief. Thanks, but I'm still grieving, you know? He said with a sad expression on his face.
What's wrong?
Asked Elizabeth. She started to worry again because it's been a while since he looked and sounded this sad.
Toy Bunny's dead,
said Micheal. Elizabeth placed her hand over her mouth. She was shocked. Then she started shedding tears in despair. Toy Bunny was her friend as well.
We're sorry for your loss,
said Ennard.
Thanks, Ennard. Also, it's nice to see you,
said Gabriel.
Sir, the commissioner wants to see you,
says the officer.
Right,
said Micheal. He left while Ennard went right back to being inside him. Meanwhile, in the mansion, William and OldMan Consequences are having another session.
I don't know about you, but I think we are starting to make progress,
said William enthusiastically while stirring his cup of tea with one leg over the other with a smile.
If you call slamming Balloon Boy progress, then I beg to differ,
said OldMan Consequences. Then they have a flashback of William doing exactly that.
Yeah, but then I let him go afterwards,
said William while shrugging his shoulders.
Yes, well, that was because your niece had to use control shock on you,
said OldMan Consequences. Then William leaned forward and held his cup of tea with both hands.
She hasn't changed,
he said.
The bond between you and her are stronger than you think, William. That's why I say I'm not the only one who sees good in you,
said OldMan Consequences. Then she's as naive as ever. But you are different, said William.
Whatever do you mean?
Asked OldMan Consequences. William gently places his cup of tea. I know your true intentions, Red Salamander. You didn't take May under your wing to redeem May. You wanted to subtly ask May about who I was talking to inside my cellar a week ago, because you think he's a threat. And you are right to think so. OldMan Consequences acknowledged William's perceptiveness, so of course he didn't deny it.
You're correct. I suspected that whoever you were talking to is after what me and Charlie vowed to protect. The thing that would bring chaos to our world,
he said. Chaos, eh? A little excessive for my taste, but sounds fun nonetheless, said William, smiling while leaning back with his eyes closed.
You don't understand the danger. If fallen into the wrong hands, everyone in our world will pay the price, including your family,
said OldMan Consequences. William's ears stood up, and his eyes widened as a reaction to what he heard. There was silence. Then the silence was broken. What? Stammered William. This whole time, he thought his family was at rest. OldMan Consequences was about to explain himself, until William cut him off. No. I'm not interested in knowing how you brought my wife and children into this world. What I want to know is why you've been keeping their whereabouts a secret from me, said William with an angry expression on his face. He was enraged at OldMan Consequences. He started pacing back and forth, huffing and puffing. OldMan Consequences closed his patient's journal while leaning forward and says,
I did it to protect your family, William.
William looks back at OldMan Consequences and says,
Protect?
I never asked you to do that. And when was it okay for you to decide what's best for my family? Just who do you think you are? Then he attempts to harm OldMan Consequences by throwing a knife at him. But OldMan Consequences stops the knife with his supernatural telekinesis.
If I told you where they are, I would be putting them in danger,
he says while he gently sets the knife next to the TV. What are you talking about? You better stop making sense, Consequences, William demanded.
Whoever you were talking to in the cellar a week ago might be keeping tabs on you,
said OldMan Consequences. They both became silent again. William starts to see the reason for OldMan Consequences' actions, so he sits and calms himself down. And if I reunite with them, they'll be in his crosshairs, said William.
Correct.
Said OldMan Consequences.
Also, I wasn't lying about redemption. For example, I just helped you remember your true purpose.
It took William a moment to figure out what he meant. Then it finally hit him. My family, he thought to himself. Even OldMan Consequences doesn't need the power of telepathy to find out William's realization. He then nods his head and says,
Now we are making progress.
Suddenly, a portal appeared between them. It was Charlie stepping out of it with worry on her face.
Elder Consequences, the chest is gone.
Charlie yelled. OldMan Consequences lowers his glasses. He dreaded this day.
Oh dear.
He thought to himself. Hold on just a bloody minute. Since when did you start wearing glasses? Meanwhile, Micheal is driving again, and while doing so, he starts having flashbacks of himself, questioning Gabriel about the incident in the pizzeria. After Cassidy chased away the Scrap Brothers, we heard screaming inside the pizzeria from the outside. When we went to investigate, we found Toy Bonnie, said Gabriel. Then the flashback ended.
Are you sure there's a connection between the Scrap Brothers and Toy Bonnie?
Asked Ennard.
Gabriel and his friends finding Toy Bonnie's body after the Scrap Brothers' arrival is no coincidence,
said Micheal. He then starts having another flashback. This time, it's him talking to another animal-based animatronic. He is a hawk with a black coat, black pants included. He's also the commissioner of the ACPD. The answer is no, detective, said the hawk-based animatronic.
But sir, whoever is responsible for the disappearance made a mistake. We have a lead,
said Micheal.
You mean another lead? Micheal, every time we reopen this case, we get nothing but dead ends,
said the commissioner, staring out the window. Micheal gets frustrated.
So what? We're just gonna sit here and let more go missing?
He asked. The commissioner turns around and says,
We do what we can. Shop muggers, jaywalkers, loiterers, shoplifters, etc.
Micheal face palms.
That's not enough, sir. We need to cover all bases of crime.
He then looks down and clenches his fists.
We took this career because I wanted to protect people,
said Micheal. The commissioner walks up to Micheal and rests his hand on his shoulder.
I know, son. I just want to be sure that you're not doing this because of your brother.
Micheal looks up and says,
I moved on,
he said. The commissioner lifts his hand off of Michael's shoulder and smiles.
Your stubbornness sure has its charm. You're strong, Micheal. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise,
said the commissioner while walking past him. After the flashback ended, Micheal and Ennard arrived to their destination, the animatronic city bar. It's where the Scrap Brothers unwind after doing their jobs. When Micheal stepped inside, Ennard commented,
Bleh, this place smells much worse than the last time we visited.
Then all the animatronics turned their heads and stared at Micheal. Even the music stopped playing. But he wasn't intimidated. It's because he and Ennard fought every animatronic in the bar once. Of course, Micheal had the advantage with Ennard up his sleeve. Literally. Even though both of them came out on top, they've taken some heavy blows. They came back. And this time, they're looking for the Scrap Brothers. Suddenly, a polar bear-based animatronic stood in their way, and he was bigger than the rest. Micheal and the bear were both staring each other down with such intensity, to the point where a brawl would have broke out. That was until a sudden male voice behind the polar bear yelled, Let them through, Portis. It was a stranger, sitting in a table by himself. He was wearing a big hat that covered his eyes. The stranger also seems to be animatronic, except he's not animal-based. After the bear moved, Micheal walked towards the stranger and sat with him. Up close, the stranger had an all-black suit, rose-red cheeks, and a pointy nose. Detective Schmidt, my friend, how are you doing? Want a drink? Micheal didn't respond. He just sat there in silence while staring at him.
Did he seriously forget that I can't get drunk?
He thought to himself, "Oh yeah, I forgot that you can't get drunk. Hey everyone, this guy right here can't feel, taste, or smell anything for the rest of his life and still hasn't lost his marbles!" yelled Clarence. The whole bar roared with cheer and laughter.
I'll have what you're having, 20 bottles,
said Ennard while sprouting out of Micheal's spine. Ho, hey Ennard, I see you're still riding the detective, said Clarence while chuckling.
And I see you're still running a rat's nest.
Ennard responded. 20 bottles, if the price is right, said Clarence as he leans forward while rubbing his finger and thumb together. Ennard steps out of Micheal's body and reaches for the bottles which are sitting on the waiter's tray.
Of course, if you don't mind, I'll be drinking outside,
he said while taking his leave with 20 bottles. Clarence turned his attention back to Micheal. So, what brings it back here after all this time? He asked while grinning.
We know it was you, Clarence,
said Micheal as he leaned forward. The mood changed. Then Clarence's face changed from a smile to a frown. Excuse me? Asked Clarence as he reaches for something. He does that occasionally whenever someone confronts or accuses him of something that he's actually guilty of. Micheal leans forward and says,
You're excused. 5 months ago, there has been reports of missing animatronics. Whoever was responsible didn't leave a trace. And because of that, my commissioner called off the search. Soon, the disappearance stopped, which made the city think that it didn't need to sleep with one eye open anymore.
Clarence squinted his eyes and said, Then Micheal cuts him off.
Person was murdered inside the pizzeria this morning by someone very sloppy. And that someone is you.
Clarence laughs while raising his eyebrow. Me? He asked.
I mean, not you directly, just someone who works for you, your bouncer over there.
Micheal points to the polar bear standing outside the front entrance.
You want to know how I know? It's because Ennard used strobe light on the victim's body for clues, and it was a bear's paw print. Funny, innit?
Asked Micheal. The music stopped, and this time, every animatronic aimed their guns at him. Clarence sets his cup down on the table and says, You got stones for accusing me, Micheal. So before I tell my loyal henchmen to light up your purple hide, tell me why I would just go and off somebody after the judge gave me life without parole, he asked. Micheal leans back on his chair.
The answer is simple. You wouldn't. You sent your boys to create a diversion outside the pizzeria while having your bouncer sneak and steal. And he did. Then came the collateral damage, unfortunately.
He fixes his mask and says,
Also, your weapons don't work on me, remember? They don't call me the undead enforcer for nothing, you know,
said Micheal. Clarence tilts his head forward and chuckles. I bet they don't. That's why our guns are filled with acid rounds. Sure, you won't feel pain given the account of you being a zombie, but the acid will spread and eat every part of your body like termites on wood until there's nothing left, he said.
Wow, you've really thought of everything,
said Micheal while crossing his arms. Well, it's like my pa used to say, if you're gonna let a wolf through your door, then you better have a trap set for it, said Clarence.
Unless that wolf walks into the lion's den with a whip,
says Micheal as he taps the right side of his head with his finger. Clarence and his henchmen were confused. And what do you mean by that? Asked Clarence with squinted eyes.
Oh, I mean, I'm going to turn this bar into a huge bonfire if you don't put away your guns,
said Micheal. Instead of being intimidated, Clarence and his henchmen burst out laughing. And how are you going to do that when we have our guns trained on you? He asks while still laughing.
I'm sorry, did I say me? I meant me and Ennard are going to turn this bar into a huge bonfire. You see, I never told you this because it's a bit of a long story. The short version is both our minds are linked with one another. So basically, all I have to do is think it and he'll do it. For example, while you were cracking jokes about my immunity, I telepathically told him to head up the roof with all 20 of your bottles and my lighter, said Micheal menacingly. Clarence's heart sank. You're bluffing,
shouted Clarence. Even though he called Michael's bluff, he was very nervous. Their telepathic connection can't be a myth considering Michael's immunity, right? Suddenly, there were loud sirens coming from outside.
Ah, yes. I forgot to mention that I also told Ennard to call our friends from downtown,
said Michael. Then Animatronic City's finest barged inside the bar from all sides. Everyone in here is under arrest. Refusing to comply will result in us using our firearms, yelled the animatronic policeman. Every drunkard, including Clarence and his henchmen, have surrendered. Michael stands up and walks up to Clarence while fixing his jacket.
Now, unless you want to add 100 years to your life sentence, you'll tell me where you're keeping your captives,
he said. Clarence started to show a scared expression on his face.
If I talk, he'll feed me to his genocidal maniacs,
he cried. Michael was shocked to see him this way. As a well-known criminal, Clarence has never been afraid of anyone. This had Michael curious. He was going to press him for answers until...
Eggs!
It was Ennard near the entrance.
Come look at this,
he shouted. Michael went to find out why he was summoned. Then the commissioner appeared, coming in through the bar's entrance.
Michael, Ennard, you caught him?
He asked. Michael nodded to ensure that they did. The commissioner congratulated them both while resting his hand on Michael's shoulder.
Hey, you two better take a look at this,
said Ennard as he points at the floor below them. A trap door half revealed under the welcome mat. Michael opens the trap door, only to find darkness.
I got this. Let there be light,
said Ennard. He then used a flashlight feature he has in his artificial eyeball. Michael had it installed occasionally a long time ago, for this line of work specifically, and what they saw down there had them shocked. It was a cellar full of animatronics that were reported missing, and they're alive.
Great Scott!
The commissioner gasped. He almost lost ability. They were trapped in there all this time.
Please, help,
pleaded one of the captives.
Get the rescue team over here,
the commissioner yelled.
No!
cried Clarence.
Get him out of here.
Michael turns to the commissioner and asks,
Can me and Ennard take time off, sir?
The commissioner turns around and leaves.
Of course. Just come to the precinct to question our man later,
he said.
You know, I would have set the bar on fire if you two hadn't stopped with the metaphors,
said Ennard. Meanwhile, Gabriel and his friends are not in their pizzeria. Instead, they're staying at Fun Times Pizzeria. Professionally, they call it Sister Location. And reasonably, they are still shaken up from the incident. Gabriel is not his usual happy self. Susie's not stuffing her face with pizza. Jeremy stopped playing with his guitar. Fritz isn't doing his usual pirate fencing routine. Even though Balloon Boy's face still wears a smile, he's still depressed.
This is all your fault,
shouted a sudden female voice. That shouting made Gabriel's ear twitch. He looked behind him to see who it was. It was Toy Chica and Toy Freddy. They're arguing about Toy Bonnie.
If you hadn't been playing that stupid Mr. Hugs game and actually did your job as a security monitor, Toy Bonnie would still be alive,
she shouted.
Me? You're the one who keeps leaving the back door open after hanging with your best friends,
said Toy Freddy as he does a girl impression with his voice. Toy Chica gets hot.
Oh, that is so like you, Toy Freddy. Can't even take responsibility. Not only are you stupid, but you're also pathetic,
says Toy Chica as she turns her head with her arms crossed.
Not as stupid as you are. You can diet and exercise for as long as you want. You're still not gonna lose weight because you're a robot, not human,
yelled Toy Freddy. They both bicker back and forth until a tall, slender silhouette figure appeared behind Toy Freddy. It was Charlie. For whatever reason, the air suddenly got colder. Her presence sent shivers down both their endo spines, as if death was coming.
Toy Freddy,
said Charlie. The dark aura starts simming out of her body.
What did we say about using the H word?
Toy Freddy started stammering, out of fear, because he knew of the consequences if he ever made that mistake again.
Also, it would be best if you are relieved from your duties.
Toy Freddy nods. He thought it would be wise to agree with her. Charlie disappears. Toy Freddy and Toy Chica go their separate ways and put aside their conflict. Then Charlie reappears in front of Gabriel. Even though her reappear trick caught him off guard, he's used to it.
How are you, Gabriel?
She asked. I'm fine, he said. Charlie pulls him towards her and rests her chin on his head.
I'm so glad you're okay.
She says as she gives him kisses. As you can tell, Charlie has a mother and son relationship with Gabriel. She also has that complex with Susie, Fritz, and Jeremy. I'm okay, Charlie, really, said Gabriel.
I've got a special delivery for you,
said Charlie as she bends over with hands behind her back, with a cheerful expression on her face. She then holds out two of her hands, revealing a present. Gee, I wonder what it could be, he said with no excitement. Gabriel opens the present and finds two spears. Wow, artificial eyeballs. Again, he said.
Except these eyeballs have pupils of the same color as the eyes,
said Charlie.
Well, I must get going.
Gabriel questions Charlie out of concern. Are you okay, Charlie? She turns around and says,
Everything is fine.
He didn't buy it. Charlie, we lived together for Scott knows how long, he said. I know when something is wrong. Charlie puts the conversation to bed, because the last thing she wants is for Gabriel to get involved.
I'm just dealing with personal stuff, which is nothing you should concern yourself with,
she said. Gabriel also wanted to ask her about the human world, but as curious as he was, he didn't want to worry her even more, so he said nothing. After she left, Gabriel was by himself. Well, that was until Fritz sprung out of nowhere. Gabriel fell backwards on his chair from the surprise and hit his head. Ah! He yelped. Fritz laughs out of joy. Dang it, Fritz! Charlie said to stop doing that, he said while turning red as he rubs the back of his head. Ah, come on, Captain. No need to get salty. Where's your sense of humor? Asked Fritz. Not only is Fritz a pirate, but he's also a mischievous prankster as well. Was giving me a concussion your idea of a sense of humor? Asked Gabriel. Fritz leans closer to Gabriel. Listen, I was wondering if you want to do it now, he whispered. Gabriel shows a confused expression on his face. What are you talking about? He asked. Oh, you know what I'm talking about. It only took Gabriel a second to realize what Fritz was referring to, and he didn't like it one bit. No, said Gabriel. Come on, Captain. We'll be in and out before anyone notices. Gabriel shook his head. That is out of the question. Charlie says we're not allowed to go to the human world, he said. Tuh, mama's boy, said Fritz under his breath with his arms crossed. Did you forget that she also mentioned how dangerous it is? Asked Gabriel. We're just gonna look at it from our world, said Fritz as he rests his hand on Gabriel's shoulder. Don't tell me you've never been tempted to see for yourself. He has, in fact, so he finally gave in. Fine, but we're just looking, said Gabriel. Fritz cheered. Meanwhile, the Glitch Lord is sitting in his dark throne room. Bring in the next test subject, and this time I want them to be more muscular, like a celebrity's bodyguard, he said. Lord Glitch, I have come with good news, shouted a sudden male voice. It was Daco getting down on his knee. He also has what seems to be a lockbox beside him. But I also bear bad news as well, said Daco. Why do you play with my emotions? Said the Glitch Lord as he face palms to show his disappointment. I was able to get the lockbox, but since that window of opportunity opened by Sinclair's men was very small, I didn't have time to snoop around for the combination, said Daco. So, that meddlesome red alligator must be keeping it in a disclosed location. Clever, but merely just avoiding the inevitable. Mark my words, I will find it. The Glitch Lord said aloud.
Lord Glitch, I have brought your next test subject, just as you requested.
Vanessa shouted.
About time.
The Glitch Lord complained.
Ah, yes. This one's my favorite. Naturally takes on the persona of a mythical dragon from the medieval times. Now that's a plus. Put him in the test tube.
Vanessa does as her master commands. The fact you don't encounter any resistance from your test subjects still amazes me, Lord Glitch, said Dako with praise.
It's actually quite simple. People can be manipulated by those with a silver tongue,
said the Glitch Lord. Dako became intrigued. Silver tongue, eh? He asked.
It's a trick I learned from my eldest brother. Before he broke our bond, he will pay,
said the Glitch Lord. Dako was curious. He always wondered about his master's past, though he never asked because of how touchy the subject was.
He is ready, my lord!
Vanessa shouted with excitement. Their master was thrilled. So he commands his servant to release the participant from his testing tube. Stepping out of the tube was an animatronic who's no longer free. Just to be sure, Glitch Lord did an experiment.
I order you to sit,
he commanded. Then the enslaved participant did as he was told. The Glitch Lord was shocked at first, then jumped with joy. After many failed attempts, he finally got it right.
Your brilliance!
Shouted Vanessa.
No need to state the obvious, my dear. Though I don't mind getting praise, please continue,
said the Glitch Lord egotistically. Then Dako interrupted. Well, I'm glad that you are happy, my lord. I must inform you of our other problem. Sinclair has been apprehended by the ACPD, he said.
I see,
said the Glitch Lord.
We don't want any loose ends now, do we? Judgment!
He yelled. Behind Dako was a mysterious figure emerging from the shadows. He had on a gray-colored predator-like mask, a black cloak covering the front and the back, but also leaving his right side exposed, revealing his sharp claws, and on his back is a magenta crystallized sword. By the looks of it, you need 2 hands to wield it, but he just needs 1.
You know what to do,
said the Glitch Lord.
Yes, Master.
Said the mysterious figure. He knew what the Glitch Lord was insinuating. Sinclair must be silenced. Meanwhile, Micheal is at the docks trying to catch fish. Then he has a flashback of himself interrogating Clarence Sinclair.
Tell you what, you let me go, and I'll make it worth your while,
Clarence said calmly.
Bribery won't work on me, Clarence,
said Micheal with pride.
Will your brother be an exception?
He asked.